Rock.
Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. Welcome to the Cymru and Byth podcast as we talk all things Welsh football. And what an enjoyable period it's been. In particular, this international break has been quite fascinating tactically. And for the first time, I questioned Craig Bellamys for about 10 minutes, and then it all changed around. But it's been certainly been interesting, very, very enjoyable. As always, we will discuss it all, both tactically and generally, and we'll have a good old deep dive. But as I say, as usual, I'm joined by the man himself, Mr. Harry Trades. How are you, mates?
I'm doing well, mate. Yeah, doing really well. Buzzing, like you said. Couldn't ask for much more, could we? Really? I know 6 points is the max, I guess, if we're looking at just points on the board. But what more can you do than get promoted, mate?
Yeah, 100%, mate. It's been it was really interesting. Like, obviously, last week when we did the show, we talked about, would we take 4 points from the games? 100%. But I think we expected to finish second with 4 points. Obviously, Montenegro did us a big favour. We'll kind of talk about, the Turkey game and then the Iceland game. But the Turkey game was interesting because I thought there was some issues in some areas, probably more individually than sort of tactically. But then equally, we did have a couple of chances where we nearly pinched like a spawny 1-0. Obviously got that bit of luck with the missed penalty at the end. But I think we also kind of deserved that bit of luck as well. And so often over the years, that sort of thing has gone against us. So that was encouraging. What did you make of, first of all, the team selection for that Turkey game? Were you surprised by any of it? Anything sort of stood out for you?
I mean, I think we discussed at length, didn't we? We thought maybe 5 at the back would have been, like a tactic maybe Bellas would have gone with, but he went with the 4. Nico, Ben Davis, Roden, Connor Roberts, which I don't think is much of a shock really. And then, if we're being honest, is the next 6 players that much of a shock? Jordan James, Sheehan have been our best 2 and only available midfielders, so you can't really question that. You've got Brennan, who's on fire; he's never not going to play in that game. Harry Wilson, the same. Sorba's the one I mentioned. Sorba, didn't I? I thought he was probably going to get a nod over, let's say, a Cullen, like Cullen did in obviously the second game, and then Sparky up front, which I think makes sense, right? With no Kiefer, Sparky can run all day and provide a bit of a a basis up front, basically. Because I mean, looking at the bench, no one else could do that. I know we speak highly of Ruben Colwell and stuff, but away to Turkey, I don't think that would have really suited him. And mate, yeah, I honestly, with the options we had, mate, I don't think the only change maybe you make if this wasn't Dan James's first sort of camp with Wales, maybe you go Dan James over Sorba. But I don't think he could have done much more more with the 11 he could have. Do you know what I mean? And the goalkeeper, it was a 50-50. One of them was going to play each one. That one's whatever.
Yeah, I think so. I think the only one I thought maybe could have played was Brooks, really. Not sure what happened with him in the second game, but because he looks after the ball so well. And I think I'd said to you on the show, or it might have even been off air, I half expected maybe Charlie Crew or Charlie Savage to get some minutes towards the end of one of the games, simply because one, in the second half, we haven't looked great generally over the last few games, although I think that changed a little bit this period. And it might have just been a way they both look after the ball really well, and also they're young and energetic. So I sort of thought maybe they get some game time. But I agree with you for that, particularly for that Turkey game. I think it was kind of as expected, and probably unless he was going to change to like a false 9 type thing, which I didn't expect him to do for that Turkey away game. it was probably, there wasn't a great deal of other options because we're so sort of low on players and whatnot. And I also thought, for instance, Sheenan and Mark Harris particularly probably deserved to keep their place from the previous, the home game in the last break. I thought they were both really, really well. They worked really hard, and I think they deserved to, to keep that place in the starting lineup. My one kind of gripe or criticism, I guess, of us against Turkey was I thought we were really sloppy in possession, which is not something that we have been under Craig Bellamy. Generally, we've been very calm, very composed, kept hold of the ball really well. Even in those sort of pressure moments where the other team have got into it a little bit, we've still kept hold of the ball pretty well. And I thought we just couldn't quite hold on to it at certain points, and we were making sort of silly passes. And I guess, but then Turkey, as a venue, is such a difficult away game anyway. They're also a very, very good team. It's like their golden generation. So to go there and, get a result is exceptional for me. I thought Darlow was outstanding. I thought the whole back five actually were really good. Connor Roberts was okay. I thought he wasn't amazing, but he wasn't bad. Mm-hmm. Nico, Ben Davis was and Roden were just colossal. Ridiculous. Same as Darlow. And it'll be interesting what he does with the keepers going into the World Cup qualifiers, whether he makes a decision or whether he just keeps going, won every other game. For me, I think he's got to make a decision. But I think he's shown that he's going to do it his way rather than what people think he should do, because it's working for him at the moment. So I think that's the one thing, is what he's doing is working. I thought it was good to see that in the second half of both games, there was a definite improvement on the recent games. You didn't see the drop off as much. You were always going to be under a bit of pressure, away at Turkey in that second half. But I thought defensively we were pretty good, So that was encouraging. Anyone stand out for you in that Turkey game?
I think, like you said, you could name any of the defense. To be honest, I know Nico gave the pen away, but come on, that's never a pen, is it really?
No,
it was a rash decision. I thought I even watched the highlights back early, and even from a distance, you can tell the ball's sort of stopped dead, if that makes sense. And yeah, he's obviously taken a bit of the man with him, momentum wise, but never a pen. But yeah, I think Ben Davis is probably the standout. But you could argue Carl Darlow. I mean, made 3 saves, 2 punches. 2 of those were inside the box and a high claim as well. We were never going to go to Turkey. We mentioned it. We said you were never going to go to Turkey and over, outdo them possession wise. It was never happening. Simple as. Not in their environment. Not with the quality they have with Yagulas and Kokchus and Çalhanoğlu's. Even though he got dragged at half time, mind. But mate, in another under Page, we lose that 4-0. Simple as. Yeah. And I know we probably do, don't we? Easy.
Yeah.
And I just think, we've ridden our luck a little bit there with the pen and them obviously hitting the post. But like you said, we probably deserved to kind of come away with a 0-0 with a point, because our offside goal was really unlucky. What play that is, by the way, the run by Mark and then the pull back to Jordan James. What a finish that is, by the way, arriving on the edge of the box. So on another day that is an offside, and we're 1-0 up at that point, but. You look in the stats, mate. They had 25 shots to our 3. To our 4. On paper, they did batter us. 63% possession to a 37. That's overall, mind. You go to second half, though, and it's a little bit more even. We had 43% in the second half, which is quite, first half, we only had 31%. So they obviously came out all guns blazing. 12 shots in that. 1 big chance created where our keeper made 3 saves. But I'm just quite, not that it means much, they're very marginal percentages, but I'm actually quite happy that we went from 31% in the first half to actually 43 in the second, because that then means that whatever Bellamy said at half time, he said, lads, just be a bit more comfortable and try and play a little bit. Like you said, there was obviously a lot of sloppiness, and it's going to happen, mate. Tired legs, running around after the Turks for, however long. It was a lot of pressure. They were under the cosh a lot, and we rode the storm, where however the saying is, and in teams up, teams previous to this probably don't get out of there alive. So I think it's a massive result, really, and it turned out to be huge. Going into the Tuesday game.
Yeah, it was very, very encouraging, mate. I thought, they got at us a little bit in the wide areas in the first half, but the second half, I think we kept hold of the ball better, which does make it a little bit easier, like you mentioned, with the possession. On the keeper thing, mate, I've got to think that as defenders, they'd rather, because most defenders you'd speak to would rather have the same keeper week in, week out. It's something which Cardiff struggled with last week, where they kept changing the keeper and the defence looked much more settled under one of the keepers. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the issue with Wales. Like they seem relatively comfortable with both. But, when we get to these World Cup qualifiers, do you think he's got to make a decision on which one is his guy?
I think so, mate. Yeah, as much as let's be real, like you can't pick one of the two right now. I think they're both showing really good glimpses of every part of their game. Like we saw Darlow, shot stopping on Saturday. Even to be fair, mate, Ward made an absolutely unbelievable save for their first goal. That obviously, going through his legs, like it's a tough one, isn't it? But the actual first save from Oscarson is it is world class. Like it's ridiculous. It's 3, 4, 5 yards out, and it's a bullet header. Like it's not as if he's right at him. Early on, 7 minutes into the game, and I know it turned into them scoring, so whatever way you want to look at it. But even Ward's kicking on Tuesday, I thought was great. Like Sparky was holding it up, and like he was zinging balls into their, deep into their half, and we were holding on to him and stuff without Kiefer Moore, by the way. So, like as much as I think Darlow has impressed, I'm not going to say he hasn't. Jesus, mate, it's brought Ward's game up tremendously. Like I always thought Ward was our weak link, and he probably was, wasn't he? In the 11, let's be just real with it. Doesn't play football, neither does Darlow, mind, for the club. But mate, I think it's literally 50-50. But I agree with you. To answer your question, yeah, he has to make a decision. Which way is that going to go? Honestly, like gun to my head, I don't know who I'd pick right now, or who he picks. I really don't know.
It depends. Maybe depends on how he wants to play, and I think that's maybe why he keeps interchanging them as well. Because I think Ward is probably more comfortable with his feet. But if you're going to play in a game like the Turkey game where you're going to have 25 shots against you, maybe you go with, you trust Darlow more to save those shots throughout a 90-minute game than maybe you do Ward. Like you think that at some point one will get by Ward, I suppose. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because ultimately, I think they both impressed in different ways, and I don't know, maybe he'll go for it. At the end of the day, every other position on a football pitch, you tend to go with, when you've got the squad, what's best for that particular game. So why I guess not? Like from an overall general perspective, why can't the goalkeepers be included in that? And for this game, I need a shot stopper. For this game, I need someone who's gonna push in, behind the centre backs and join the play. It is a tricky one, but I tend to agree. I think, when you come up against top quality sides, like genuinely top quality sides, that sort of step above Turkey, if you like. And let's be honest, Turkey have got, they're a good side. Very good side. And I think, but when you come up against those teams above them, like you want to be as settled as possible, and then a few tactical tweaks here and there sort of thing, I believe. But I don't know, maybe he'll look at it differently.
Yeah, I just think about it from this perspective then. So let's say, going into Bellamy gets a job. On paper, Ward's is number one, like as we speak. And then he rings up Darlow and goes, what is that conversation? Is it, look, I don't have a number one, or Ward is my number one, and I think you could really give him a run for his money. Like, come and play 3 games, or I think it's 3 or 4 games they've played each or whatever. Like, what is that conversation, do you reckon? Not that it really matters, but I'd be shocked if Darlow says yes to Bellamy going, look, you're definitely going to be my number 2. Do you know what I mean? Like, that obviously wasn't the case. Yeah. Like, they give them both of them a clean slate, it seems, and that's probably the only fair way to do it. But I think Bellamy's come out and said, like, I will be picking one. And I think also in a press conference a couple of weeks ago, Ben Davies was asked that question, like you alluded to, like, that must be quite weird as a back four, like having to play with different goalkeepers. And he seemed to say, like, it's not a problem. He's not going to come out and say it is a problem, is he, if Bellamy's chosen to do both? Do you know what I'm saying? But in the same vein, like, I think what he's done is great. He's given both an opportunity. And like I said, it's fucking risen Ward's game, mate. Like, it really has. It's given him a kick up the arse. And I think he needed it. Because like you said, if our first qualifier game's at home, I'm not a betting man, but I'd probably put money on Ward starting just because it's at home, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, maybe depending on the opposition, but generally speaking,
maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. But like you said, if we're away up against it, Turkey, one of these really tough games away, like how does the qualifying even work? Is it the same team home and away, or is it? I don't honestly know, like genuinely.
I think it is. Yeah, I think it's like traditional. I think, but they might have changed it. They've changed everything else, mate. So
yeah,
surprised me change that as well. Yeah. So how did you feel going into the Iceland game? Because obviously we gave up predictions on the Thursday. I think I said 2-1 on the show, but I actually entered a competition. My mate was running a competition to guess the score in the days before it, and I put Wales 4-1, and I said Wales 4-1 on someone else I did, and then it obviously came true. So
fair play, mate.
I did fancy us to beat Iceland. But I'd be lying if I looked at that first sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes and was like, oof. Because what he was made, his selection was brave, to say the least, because he effectively played a single pivot in Sheenan and then 2 number 10s in the number 8 positions. And I said to you, like, I do find it difficult to kind of see how you'd pick Cullen over Ruben Caldwell from a pure football point of view. I just think Ruben holds the ball better. He's a bit more creative. He's stronger. Blah blah blah. However, what Liam Cullen does give you, and I think he's shown in the couple of games he's played under Bellamy, is he will work and work and work. And in that high pressing style that Bellamy wants to not only play but sustain through 90 minutes, no matter the score as well. We were 4-1 up and we were still pressing. I think Cullen, I can see why he picked him. And obviously he pitches a couple of goals. I still think he doesn't offer a great deal on the ball, like in the kind of, especially when he's playing as a number 8 almost. It's like, he's not technically at the level of, like a Harry Wilson or a David Brooks or someone like that. But to play a single pivot, you needed someone in there who was going to work.
Yeah.
So I can definitely see the why. I don't know what happened with David Brooks, so I don't know if he's injured or whatnot. I felt sure that David Brooks was going to start and play at least an hour because he had done so well in the previous home game. Like he just run out of steam. So there was a few little things which I was kind of texting you, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not sure about this." And the single pivot, I felt sorry for Josh Sheenan in the first half because up until he scored, he spent a lot of time having to kind of recover from his own. It sounds harsh, not weakness. Like it is weaknesses in his game, but like it's not necessarily a dig at him. It's not what his game is. Like he's not that great at reading the game and anticipating, but he is good at kind of doing the dirty work and winning the ball back and playing simple balls and you need that player in the way Wales play. But I felt sorry for him being the single pivot and no Jordan James in there because he was kind of getting caught out a bit. He was getting exposed and doubled up on. He was then having to do desperate slide tackles when probably you wouldn't want him to be doing that sort of tackle. But it was kind of, if he didn't, they were through and on to the defence. So that was interesting. But I thought we got better as the game grew and Cullen and Wilson helped him out a little bit. Obviously, Nico and the fullbacks kind of tucked in a little bit at times. And I thought tactically that after we scored, particularly once we scored 1, I thought tactically we were pretty good. But in that second half, for me, I was like, we are way too open. I think I said to you, and I think you said, we need a goal to kill it because it was 2-1. and it was like, if they get the next goal, it's going to be bad. And they had some big chances, and we were very open.
They did, didn't they? Yeah.
And it was clear that we were going to try and get that third goal. But even when we got the third goal, even before that, he never really tried to, he didn't sort of go to that like double pivot and make it a bit more solid. He kind of stuck with a similar system with some subs. What did you make of that Iceland performance?
In a weird way, it was. I think us winning from 1 goal down, I think hasn't happened since 2016. No. I believe it's like a bit of a mad stat, isn't it? Almost 10 years. And Bellamy was, quite quick to point that out. I think in the post-match press conference, and how proud he was of the boys, getting the job done in style probably towards the end. But as the 11 goes, it kind of makes sense. Like Cabango rotates in, Connor Roberts comes out, Ben Davies offers a lot of sort of balance to Nico being able to go, to stretch the pitch on the right. Ben Davies, not going to do that. He doesn't need to if we've got Nico on the other side doing it, and he's got Dan James to do all that for him. It's just passable to DJ and let him run, right? So that, I think that balance worked amazingly well. And then, like you said, the single pivot with Cullen and Wilson. I'm just looking at their heat maps now, and it was evident that Cullen was sort of predominantly playing on the left side as a left footer, and Wilson was on the right as obviously a left footer. So that was kind of the 1 and the 2. What's absolutely mental to me, and I cannot believe how this is true, but it is. Do you want to give me, or do you want to guess how many accurate passes Liam Cullen made in this game? Oh, I'll give you perspective. Harry Wilson made 39. Harry Wilson made 39, just for a reference point. So
I'd probably say
take that.
Half of that, maybe.
Way
I don't
less.
even think it was. Yeah, I
again, like 6 passes.
Wow.
And he got 2 goals and 2 assists, which is absolutely ludicrous. 6 touches at 6 passes.
It's crazy, isn't it? Right? I saw some people saying like that he was a 9 out of 10 performance and stuff, and I was like, I get it. Like 2 assists, 2 goals.
Of course.
Worked his balls off. I can't fault him for that. But like my sort of gripe or criticism, whatever you want to call it, with him is like on the ball. And I just think when you play those good teams, and we saw it in the Turkey game. I know he didn't play, but I just mean like in terms of how important, especially when you're going to play in such a high pressing way, and it's a lot of energy. You can't be giving the ball away all the time. And I just look at now, you see, 38% accurate passes is from a player who predominantly played as a number 8. It's problematic, isn't it? But equally, if everyone's fit, he probably doesn't start.
Probably not. No.
If Ampadu's fit, you'd imagine Ampadu's in there. Ramsey maybe, and if Kiefer Moore's fit, you might see Harris a bit deeper, or you might there's a few different options in there. And look, I don't want to get on him. He scored 2 goals, he's got 2 assists, and he worked. His heat map shows how hard he worked. But I would just like to see a bit of an improvement within. Like he's taking care of the ball a bit. Like if he's going to play that sort of role, because good teams will take us apart, especially with a single pivot. Like
it's weird,
you lose
isn't it?
the ball in that area, you are up the creek without a paddle, in you.
We saw, was it the Brennan goal on the break, wasn't it? So Wilson and Cullen had pressed their I think it was Gudjonsson or whatever. He's obviously been dispossessed, and Cullen's obviously wrapped that ball into Brennan. He's 1-on-1, he scores. That's basically what would happen a lot of the time to us. We don't, you know what I'm saying? Like if Cullen loses the ball there, and then the good team goes on to break, whatever. It's obviously a hypothetical, but that just shows why Cullen's in the team, though, isn't it? Because that press, like him and Wilson obviously nicked the ball off him, and you're right. It is because of his off the ball stuff. If Ruben Colwell could run and do all the off the ball stuff Cullen's doing, Ruben Colwell's the first name on this team sheet. I don't care what anyone says. He is. He's just not willing to. He's just not that type of player. And Bellamy just doesn't like that. Now you just gotta live with it. really. That's the issue.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, maybe if there's no Harry Wilson available, maybe Ruben's looked at more then, because you need that sort of creative player to knit it all together. But like, you know, and Ruben's been a lot harder working this year off the ball
Oh,
than
agree.
the end of last year. But he isn't that player. Like, he's the one who's going to take up the pockets. He's going to beat a man. Who's going to create and link up. I was surprised he didn't get it. Well, I say I was surprised. I wasn't surprised he didn't get any time, because I called it before the break, or when we went into the break, that I didn't think he was going to play at all. I was surprised he didn't get like 5-10 minutes when we were 4-1 up, and like just give him a bit of game time. But he obviously, look, Craig Bellamy's been quite harsh on Ruben in some of his interviews. Some people have said, and they feel like he's almost got like an issue with him, and I disagree. See, he's been very honest about it, but what people sometimes forget is he knows Ruben very, very well on a personal level. He coached him as a kid. He knows him exceptionally well, not just as a footballer, but as a person. And in my opinion, what he's trying to do is, he knows how good Ruben is. He knows how good Ruben can be, and he's trying to challenge him to be even better and to reach where he thinks he should be and can be. And I think it's then up to Ruben to show that he can do that, like, and respond to that. And some players, they don't take well to a bit of sort of criticism or digs or whatever you want to call it, like sort of subtle jibes, like whatever you would say. But Ruben's got to take his Cardiff form on further and become the player that Craig Bellamy thinks he can be. Because ultimately, I think that's what it comes down to, is he can be that player. Like, he's got no one's doubting his ability. And I just think it's interesting, though, because someone was telling me the other day that long-term, Craig Bellamy views him as a number 8, which is fascinating to me, really, because like, he's been a 10 all his sort of career, but he's not your stereotypical 10 in terms of his physique and everything like that. So maybe, you know, like, I've been super impressed with Craig Bellamy's attention to detail. And if he's saying that he thinks Ruben Colwell can be an out-and-out number 8, like a box-to-box technical number 8, I believe him. Now, you know, if that turns out to be the case, or he stays as a 10 or whatever, like, I believe, not only do I believe Craig Bellamy can help get the best out of him and help him get better as a player, but I also believe that Ruben's got the technical ability and the mentality from improving his game to do whatever he wants. He could play 6, he could play 8, whatever. He can do all of it if he puts his mind to it. What'll be interesting is, I'd imagine in the next international break, you'd hope that a lot more of the players are fit. Some of these younger players is definitely pushing, you know, like Owen Beck is playing regular football. Lewis Kumas is playing regular football. So some of those young players now are not just potential. They're playing week in, week out in the championship or, you know, elsewhere. So it'll be interesting what he does. I saw on SofaScore, like, Brennan Johnson had a 9 out of 10 against Iceland. Like, I don't see that at all, mate. I got, like, great finish, great goal. I thought him being high and wide caused Iceland a lot of problems. But I don't see the same Brennan Johnson that we see for Spurs in a Wales shirt. I can't quite put my finger on why. I don't know if it's because we just play a bit differently, or or what it is. But like, I still think there's more to come from Brennan and in a Welsh shirt, and I'm excited by that. I've got to say,
mate, his ball he did that with his left foot, by the way. You know, he's wrapped that ball into Cullen. What a header that is! Little slight touch. Obviously gets the nick in. The reason, well, I'm a SofaScore nerd, so I'll tell you why he got the 9 rating. Obviously, the goal and assist is massively, like, bumping it up. But he won 8 out of 9 ground duels, which is, like, for a forward, is ridiculous. Basically means the left back just got skinned 8 times. Basically what that means. He got fouled 3 times as well, and he won 3 tackles. That's one big thing. Like, the game I play is so rare. I actually have Brennan Johnson's card, so I know him. I know his stats inside out. And for a forward, he tackles a lot. Like, he actually makes a lot of tackles, which is quite rare for, forwards in general. Dan James is pretty good for it as well, but nowhere near the output that Brennan Johnson does. And that obviously contributed to that 9 match rating. Obviously, the goal and assist is the big reason. I know what you mean. Yeah, Brennan's hot and cold, isn't he? Like, he's not, he's not going to be the player that you look to and go, Brennan, just go. Remember when Bale used to just pick up the ball and just run from 30 yards and put it in the top corner? We don't have, I know Harry Wilson's Harry Wilson, but we don't really have that anymore. We've got, like, if you could combine Brennan and Harry Wilson into one player, right, you've got an absolute world beat, haven't you? I know, we're asking for, stupid things to happen here, but my point is, like, Brennan's on that side, he's very isolated in some ways in like how he plays. And, he does come in and sort of, play 1-2s with players now and again and like get involved in stuff. But ultimately, he is just a whippet, isn't he? Give him the ball and let him beat his man and either cut in on his left, and we saw his crosses can be really good on his left, or go to the byline and and do it that way, or obviously score if there's space to run into the box and stuff. So yeah, I mean, the reason why he's not as good for Wales is, let's be honest, we're just not as good of a team as Spurs. Like, Like, and I'm not saying he's unbelievable for Spurs. He had a nice little spell before last international break. He's been a bit cold, I'd say, recently prior to this international break. But yeah, overall, he's had a half-decent season, to say the least. And yeah, I just think, he just doesn't have the service. Like, there's no disrespect, but like, we don't have a Maddison who can just pass the ball from any angle and, find him over the top, or wherever the reason is. We don't have a Dom Solanke, a £50 million striker. We have, no disrespect, Mark Harris. Like, that's the issue. We're not playing with we're not playing with the same level of players. I'm not putting it all down to that, but it obviously does. It does sort of contribute. But mates, like, our good players are doing what they're supposed to do. Wilson scoring, Brennan scoring, Dan James is back fit. I know he hasn't scored whatever. Cullen's done the business there, but we've got such good players to come back in, mate. It's so exciting. Like, Ampadu to come into that. Obviously, Jordan James as well. Like, what happens, mate, if we play, name your team. Let's just call it, I don't know, Bosnia at home or something like this. Do we go one pivot again and 2/8 if Ampadu's fit? And if he is fit, does Sheehan just get bombed? What happens there?
So, for me, if Ampadu's fit, mate, he's the first name on my team sheet.
Well, he is, isn't he? He gotta be.
Because he can play, he's got the athleticism to play the single pivot. He's got the anticipation, but he's also got the ball playing ability to break lines. And I think if you could have him sat there with, I personally, for my sort of taste and balance, if I'm going to play a single pivot, I want 2 like proper number 8s. So I don't mind having Harry Wilson as one, but then I want a proper midfielder, almost like a box-to-box type. But then maybe we haven't got that unless you bring in
Jordan James. Like,
Jordan James, I think, can do that role, absolutely. But then, I wonder how long it'll be before we see Charlie Crew and before we see Owen back, because they are playing football and they're very, very good. But look, mate, with at full strength, and I think that's something that people should bear in mind. Like, Bellamy's played a large portion of these 6 games with a very understrength side in terms of players that would normally at least be in the squad. And I think to get the results he's got has been superb. Robbie makes a great point there. Like, he says, let's see if I can get it up on the screen now. He said you can have 11 of the best players in the world, put them together and they'd be rubbish. We've got 11 Welsh players who play as a team, and it's brilliant. And I think that's something which has been impressive, is how, and I'm not surprised by it. I think I said to you, mate, when I did that live event with Craig Bellamy, the overarching kind of mood coming out of it, even by some of the people who weren't massive fans of him as a player or whatever, everybody was like, wow, I would run through a brick wall for him. And I said on the night, if he can get that same kind of message across and that same mentality and attitude across to those players, we could be in something really special, because tactically, and he's so detail orientated, he's got very, very good coaches with him. So if he can get the players on board to just basically, as a manager, it feels like whatever he wants them to do, they'll do. Whether it's go to 3 at the back, whether it's go to a single pivot, whether it's go 4-2-3-1, doesn't matter what he comes up with, whatever his plan is, and he's come up with several. Those players will run through a brick wall for him and for the Welsh Dragon. And I think that's massive when, as you said earlier, we haven't got a Bale now where you could just give him the ball and he made, now and again, Harry Wilson might do something special, or Daniel James will break through, or Brennan Johnson might do something special, but then none of them will. I think it's pretty safe to say, probably safe to say, that none of them will ever reach the consistency that Gareth Bale did, where he's top 3 player in the world, only in front of it. The only people in front of him were Messi and Ronaldo. Yeah. So it wasn't just how good he was and that he was able to pull out those moments of quality. It was that he would do it week in, week out, time and time again, especially in a Wales shirt. But yeah, I'm interested, mate. Because there's a lot of players to come back. So which one of these? Which ones of the players drop out? Because some of them will have to drop out of the squad.
100%, mate.
I mean, the team might change, but some of that squad is not going to be in the next squad if everyone's fit.
No, 100%. I mean, Ampadu's the one, isn't he? Ampadu walks back in, but at the expense of Josh Sheehan it would be tough on him.
You need Sheehan in the squad, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I'm on about starting 11 now. I'm looking at the 11 that played against Turkey, and I'm looking at, okay, how does that get better, right? And it gets better by going Ampadu in for Sheehan. For me, I know Cullen was unbelievable, and I'm in agreement with you. I think I go Jordan James with Harry Wilson as a 3. Okay. Yeah. Brennan plays. Dan James probably does play. It's him or Sorba. I'd probably prefer Dan James if I'm being completely honest. The back four.
Sorry, mate, just to interrupt you there, right? I like Daniel James off the bench, though, because I think his pace is such an asset that sometimes he almost gets nullified if he starts, as opposed to Sorba Thomas. You can get an hour out of him, and then, because Sorba Thomas will just work up and down, up and down, up and down. And then if you bring Daniel James on for 20, 30 minutes, it's a nightmare for defenders. They're tired. Sorba Thomas has been up and down, and he's so quick, Daniel James. And I'm not even against putting Daniel James up front for the last 15, 20 minutes to try and hit teams on the break that way. But yeah, sorry, go on, carry on. So Daniel James,
Yeah. I think the back four doesn't get any better. I think it's Nico, Roden, Cabango, and Davis. I obviously, I don't mind Connor Roberts, but I want Nico to be on his favoured foot and favoured side ultimately. And Nico is a better overall player than Connor Roberts. And so one of them, Connor obviously misses out there, and Ben Davis fills in at left back. I know he's not, an out-and-out left back, but I think we can absorb that with Cabango covering next to him. Obviously very athletic, can kind of do that if Davis does get done. We've got, a really athletic centre-half there next to him. The number 9 one is the only one for me that I'm like, what happens? Because Sparky's given such a good account of himself. I know Kiefer's a completely different profile, but I think I'm going with Sparky, mate. I think he's our best number 9, genuinely. Who else is there, really? I know you could play Brennan up there, whatever, and you can move things around that way, but let's just argue Brennan stays as a right winger. We're not playing him up front. Who else have we got? Is Kiefer or Sparky, isn't it?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of Welsh strikers at the moment, is there, which are doing the business, unless you look to Biancheri.
Yeah. He's on fire, mate.
You look at what they've done with Kumas, got him capped. I'd be bloody.
It's got to be soon, haven't it?
Well, mate,
I know.
He scored another hat trick. I know Italy have already spoken to him and his family, so it's the only reason. I'm not saying he's ready to play for Wales. I would
got to cap him, haven't you, as soon as possible?
The rate he's going at, because I spoke to someone who lives up Manchester way, and he is he's impressed since he's got up there. My only worry for him at United is they signed that Obi Martin from Arsenal, who I think might end up kind of jumping the queue in front of him, even though he's younger, because of his stature. However, for Cardiff, it might work out all right because he might be available on loan either in January or in the summer. But that's another story. Isaac Davis is due back soon. he might be an option if he can find that form that he had last year. But I know Craig Bellamy's a huge fan of Isaac Davis, like massive fan. So if Isaac Davis starts, and the way Cardiff play at the moment, they need Isaac Davis, because without Callum Robinson in the side, they look a different team. When they put a target man up there, we look very one-dimensional. If you can get Isaac Davis fit and playing up through the middle, that might be good for him and for Cardiff and for Wales. But there's a long way to go with that, like, because he's only coming back sort of injury. I think he's kind of sort of on his way back now. I'm trying to think if there's any Welsh strikers sort of knocking about that were close to getting in the squad that like didn't get called up, or
the Wrexham guy. What's the Wrexham lad called?
Mullen. They always ask about him, don't they? Like,
yeah, I know.
I just think and mate, to be honest with you, I think Mark Harris is better. He's playing at a higher level. He's doing it at a higher level.
Yep.
I'd rather see youngsters blooded than going like, what's Paul Mullen, like 26, 27, maybe even older.
And the rest, yeah,
he's like, do we need to bring in someone of that age?
Probably
like,
not.
really?
No. I agree with you.
Or put it another way, like, yes, Paul Mullen can do something special now and again, but would you rather have an Isaac Davis, a Biancheri, or whoever on 100%. The bench? The future of Welsh football. Like, we 100%. Always talk about Harry Wilson, Nico Williams, some of the Ampadu, these guys are grabbing 50-odd caps and the rest because they're young. Oh, they started playing for the first team young, and now they're excelling. Well, do we see Bellamy do that now with Biancheri, with Crew, with Joel Colwell, with, like, there's so many. But I wouldn't be surprised, mate. So I agree with you with the back four. I know there's some people who are massive fans of Cabango. The reason I like Cabango in there, because he gives a bit of pace to, apart from Nico, there's a lack of pace, and Nico is the furthest forward a lot of the times out of the back four. If it switches to a 3, whether that be from a 4 in possession to a 3, that's nice and easy with Ben Davis just tucking in. And if it switches to a 3 in terms of the actual system, Roden, Davis, and Cabango is a good 3 with Roden in the middle. Nico Williams as a right wing back or a right full back. And then I also think it won't be long before we see Owen back. I think, look, Connor Roberts has been a good servant to the Welsh national team. But in my opinion, I think it's probably time to move to different options. Not saying he can't be in the squad, not saying that we should just bin him off, but I just think there's better options now. Whether that is like Owen Beck is playing and is an exceptional footballer, and he's an out and out left back, which allows Nico to go out to the right. And then if you don't want to play Cabango and you play in a back 4, you can move Ben Davis into the middle with Roden, and they looked so good against Turkey. So Jonathan just said Tom Bradshaw was knocking on the door for years. Will Evans of Newport, that's what I mean. It's not like a whole host of Welsh strikers banging on the door, is there?
No,
in terms
hardly any depth, is there really?
No, and it is the one position. Broadhead obviously was out this time around. Cullen can play further forward. I don't think. I mean, well. So there's 2 aspects to that with Cullen if you played him as a 9. One, he'll do the pressing and the working, and he'll run the channels, and he'll do all the things off the ball that you want. Can you rely on him to hold the ball up, though, and use it the way that Harris did? I would argue probably not.
I agree.
But there might be games where you're not going to have much of the ball, and you want someone to just rat around and do that stuff. But then I'd also argue in those games where you're not going to have much of the ball, when you do get the ball, you need someone to hold on to it. So that Davis gets the nod there. Go on.
No, I was going to say, I think Sparky just offers everything in one, to be honest. From what I saw on against Iceland, like those big lofting balls over the top to him, he did deal with him quite well, and he did look after it. Like, he's not massive either, Sparky. He's like 5'10", 5'11". Like, he's not a huge figure or stature, but ultimately he's strong and he can look after the ball, and he showed it, and it worked for us because we did get chances from that. And I'd probably argue, like you said, Cullen probably doesn't do that as effective. And not only can Sparky do it back to goal, like he can run with the ball as well. Like that chance, he played somebody in. I can't remember who it was. We didn't end up scoring from it, I don't think. Second half, I think it was. I looked at the highlights earlier, but yeah, like he can find a pass as well. Because as a kid, Sparky wasn't a 9. He was always like a bit of a winger and really tricky winger, and he's got that in him. Like he's got vision. Like it's not as if like he's just like tunnel vision, doesn't look up when he's dribbling or anything. Like he can run with the ball at pace and find passes. And there's one thing in common that whole, from 4-5 had on Tuesday night. They've all got legs, Sparky, Dan James, Cullen, and Brennan. They can all run. And Bellamy, as we know, was a quick player himself. He's obviously going to favour players who can run at the end of the day. Hence why we go back to maybe that's why Colwell's not going to, get much of a look in until he's just absolutely undroppable, if that makes sense, for, Cardiff form. Like Bellamy loves high pressing. He loves turnovers. He loves players who can get recoveries and win duels. Like you've mentioned the word duel. I can't remember the last time a Welsh manager, used the word duel. Do you know what I mean? And it's I use it every day in what I do, but like, it was just mad to hear him say that, because it's like, Rob Page hasn't been using the word duel. I can tell you that for free in the last couple of years. So it's just refreshing to see that he's really on board with the, the underlying stats of a lot of these players, and whatever he's putting together as an 11 is just flipping working, mate. But that all comes down to his he's just so infectious as a character, isn't he? Like imagine him training you on the training ground. Like he's just not in your face in a negative way, but you know what I mean? Like he cares so much. He's so passionate, and that can only rub off on players, mate. You can, you're the average of the 5 people you're around, or whatever the saying is, and if everyone's on board with that type of mentality in the group, it's just going to spread like wildfire, isn't it, at the end of the day? And yeah, I'm not saying I doubted Bellamy, but I'm so impressed with how quick he's managed to get this philosophy, mentality, and work rate and desire as a unit. Never mind from a selfish point of view. Like all these players do these things for their club, but for them to come and do it as a collective is just, I'm so impressed, mate. I really am.
And what's even more impressive around it is no game has been the same tactically. Like he's had a bit of a plan for each game. So to be able to implement those tactics to each game, and sometimes it's not even like over an international break, it's like 2 individual games in the international break will have 2 different sides, 2 different tactics, 2 different formations. And I think to be able to do that in the amount of time that he gets to with the players is, it's been impressive, mate. I was fairly confident he was going to do well, simply because, I've heard a lot about him as a coach anyway, but just the way he spoke and got his points across to us. But to come in and do 6 unbeaten is remarkable. He also used Ramsey as a false 9, mate, which I thought worked really well. And I wonder whether that might be something which he goes back to at some point. And there's a lot of different options with that as well, because you could use Ramsey as a false 9. You could use Harry Wilson as a false 9. Like there's lots of different options when everybody's fit. It'll just be interesting to see who drops in and out when everyone's fit. David Brooks is only going to get fitter. He's going to be pushing for a place in the starting lineup. Just looking at there's a lack of centre forwards, and Welsh centre forwards at the moment is a bit frightening. But
shocking, isn't it?
That'll come, mate. Though,
mate, listen to this though. I was just thinking, there's a really interesting period now for us Welsh fans, and then subsequently the players, because there's no international break now until March, right? What's going to happen to all our boys now that aren't playing football, aka Harry Wilson, aka Nico Williams, for their club, right? Because as we know, they aren't really getting a look in. I know Wilson's come off the bench and done well, but the manager's come out and said he's pushing, but he still haven't started him. What is going to happen? January comes round. I bet you any money Bellamy's on to them, saying you need to go and play. Like, you're doing great, but if you want to take it to the next level now, if you want to get qualified for the World Cup, you got to go and play football. Simple as. Like, I think that needs to happen, mate, to a couple of our big boys.
It'd be interesting, mate, because then when you look at some of the younger players like Charlie Savage playing week in, week out. So then what do you do? Like, because if those younger players are playing week in, week out, but the more experienced players are not getting a look in at all, there's decisions to be made, isn't there? Certainly if, you're picking the squad, maybe not the starting 11, but the squad. Jordan James hasn't been playing in France. I think he might go on loan in January. And mate, I said when he was available, from a Cardiff point of view, I'd have been happy if we'd have put all our transfer budget on him because of his age and the profile of player he is. But then again, like Nico Williams, maybe he goes on loan. I think he's played a bit though, haven't he, Nico, for Forest?
He was, but he's been bombed now though, mate. He hasn't played for weeks. Yeah, comes off the bench now and again, but he hasn't started a game for, I could tell you exactly when now. He did start the season, but then...
I was going to say, at the start of the season, he was flying, wasn't he?
He played 5 in a row at Stormers, and then came off the bench for 4 games, played for Wales twice, came off the bench twice for Forest, didn't get a minute against West Ham or Newcastle, and then just played 2 90 minutes for us. So he's played, 4 90 minutes in the last... since October, and they've all been for Wales. Like, he hadn't played more than 30 minutes for club, so it's worrying, mate.
Yeah, and I think, I want to finish on this, really, mate. Let's finish on a positive. Oh, 2 things. I'd go to these 2 comments, so I'll do this one first. Jonathan says, Robert Page tried telling them all to go find clubs where they can play regularly, and most didn't listen. But I could imagine if Craig Bellamy goes and says to Nico Williams or to Jordan James, you need to be playing week in, week out. If that means going on loan somewhere, go on loan. You can imagine them listening because they've seen what he's done in a short space of time. They want to be a part of it. They don't want to lose their place because they're sat on the bench in their club sides. So it'll be interesting if we see like an influx of Wales talent going out on loan in January. But Martin says Craig Bellamy's talked in glowing terms about some of the under-19 squad. Yeah, the 19 and the 21s in Welsh football is so exciting because there's, I reckon, maybe 5, 6, 7 players who legitimately could have an argument to be looking to be in the first team squad by the next international break if things were to keep progressing the way they are. So that's exciting to me. And I believe that Bellamy will do the same as what Gary Speed did, what Ryan Giggs did, in blooding those young players early to try and have them experienced. But he will have to mix that because he wants to be successful. So slightly different to, say, Gary Speed, where he was building something and almost starting all this revolution of Welsh football. He didn't have maybe the goals for qualification and things like that in the now that maybe Bellamy's got. And I think that's the slight difference. So you can't bring in, like Giggs brought in a lot of young players at the same time, didn't we? So I think when everyone's fit, maybe Owen Beck gets in. Charlie Crew, Charlie Savage, I think probably drop out. Maybe Charlie Savage keeps his place because he's been playing regular football. But it's exciting times, mate, for Welsh football, I got to say. And it'll be very interesting to see how it progresses between now and March. In terms of our show, mate, obviously we do these in the international break. We filmed a festive New Year's Christmas special on Monday where we were joined by Sky Sports and Talk Sports Welsh football correspondent Lawrence Mora. And we went through and we picked our all-time Welsh 11, which I'm sure people will be very angry with, no doubt. But that'll be out over the sort of Christmas, New Year period. We are going to try and do something between now and March, even if it's now and again, just a bit of an update. And maybe we'll do like an update on how the Welsh players are doing at their club sides or something.
Definitely.
Just to keep us ticking over. But it's been a great pleasure, mate, as always, to chat to you about Welsh football. I'm about to hop on and do Rhodri gigs on football and Ace Podcast Nation. If people want to continue the football talk, we'll also be talking about Wales and Craig Bellamy as well on there, I'm sure. But, mate, thank you very much.
Absolute pleasure, mate. Yeah, it's been an unbelievable, well, probably 3 or 4 months. Just doing these shows with you, and it's corresponded with Wales playing some incredible football as well. So yeah, all exciting stuff. And yeah, no, we'll definitely do a little monthly recap of the players, and that. I think that'll be a really nice little thing to take us over until qualification. I'm sure there'll be friendlies. Something Martin said in the chat there. There'll be a couple of friendlies, I think.
Yeah, we need to get a friendly and just cap all the bloody Perry and a few of the others. So guys, if you want to join me over on Ace Podcast Nation to continue the football chat, I'll be over there in a few minutes. And tomorrow night we've got the Cardiff City vs Sheffield Wednesday preview will be coming out. We got also got a really interesting podcast out next Tuesday. I think it'll be Tuesday with me, Jamie, and Martin Davis talking all about Cardiff City's development teams. So a lot of the under-19s in our Welsh squad will be up for discussion. That was a really interesting chat, so I'm looking forward to doing that. The boys will be back with a match reaction on Saturday night. I'll be back with a breakdown on Sunday. Cardiff City phone in Monday, and away we go. Lots and lots of content on the channel, 7 days a week. It's all good. But until then, I'll bid you farewell. Nostar.